Yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai lai, yai lai lai lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Page 142. Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi-melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Kadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi-melech Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitchem leShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Kadosh Baruch Hu.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Siamak, the Howitz moved out of your seat. You can have it back if you want. When you lead Israel trips, I don't know if any of you have been on trips before, Shabbat Shalom, first of all. The first day on one of these tours, whether it's an Israel trip or another, people sit on the bus in a seat. And then for that week or those 2 weeks that you're on that bus, they think that that's their seat the entire time. I think it's the same way in synagogue, right? You sit in that one seat and that's your spot. God will not be able to find you if you should sit in another seat in the synagogue, of course. But in truth, and we know this, and I didn't think I was going to start the service this way. I just saw an open seat where Siamak normally sits. But, wherever it's not that God should find us wherever we sit, but that we should find God wherever we sit, that to bring holiness into the space. The Torah told us just a few weeks ago that we should build a sanctuary so that God can dwell among us. And the idea there, the image is that God will enter the space where we are, but we have to sometimes go finding God. One of my favorite teachings from a Hasidic tale is about a father and a son who are on the road, and the father pulls the wagon, because these stories are always in the shtetl and there's always a wagon. And there's generally always a father and a son. There should be a father and a daughter and a mother and a son, but that's not usually the story. And the father pulls the wagon off to the side of the road so the son can pick berries or flowers or whatever. And then the father needs to keep going, and the son says, but I want to keep picking the berries. And the father says, well, I'm going to drive down the road, and you keep calling out my name as I go further down the road, and you walk that way. And if I ever get so far that you don't hear my response, come running, calling my name until you hear me, and then you know that we're not too far away. And our rabbis, the Hasidic rabbis, use that as a midrash, as a folktale, to teach us that that's how it should be with God. That if we ever feel that we're sitting too far away from God, that we're standing, that we are in a place where God is too distant from us, then we need to move. We need to move closer to be with God, and many of you have done that tonight. From whatever distance you felt you were at, you've come to this space to find holiness, and however you defined it, a power greater than yourself. To find, I hope, a sense of Shabbat Menucha, of spiritual rest and renewal, and also Shabbat Simcha, Shabbos of joy and celebration, as we celebrate Soleh being called to Torah, technically for the first time, but really for the second time, and we'll explain that tomorrow. So that's a teaser if you want to come and find out the end of that riddle. For whatever reason that you're here and wherever you're sitting, we're glad that you are. So we want to ask Sandy and Lauren and Carmel and our Bat Mitzvah Soleh to come and help us do a reading and the lighting of the Shabbos candles. Okay. Go ahead.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our day, be among those who kindle light.
Take the middle candle, light the other two.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
So Soleil is going to come around now with the bisamim, the spices that normally we use and we will use at the end of Shabbat at Havdalah to breathe in so that we fill up the empty spaces in our souls as the extra soul we get on Shabbat leaves us. But in our congregation, we also begin Shabbat with the smelling of the bisamim, of the sweet spices, to make a fertile ground so that that extra soul that we get on Shabbat is welcomed with sweetness and with blessing. We'll continue Kabbalat Shabbat with Cantor Cohen.
Page 130. Lechu neranena l'Adonai nariah letzorishenu nekadma fanav betodah bizmirot narialo yalalai 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 one more time. 132, last paragraph on that page. Or Zarua. Or Zarua la tzadik ul yishrei lev simcha. Or Zarua. Or Zarua la tzadik ul yishrei lev simcha. Simchut tzadikim. Simchut tzadikim Adonai ve'odu lezecher kodsho. Simchut tzadikim Adonai ve'odu lezecher kodsho. Back to the top. Or zaru ala tzadik ul yishrei lev simcha. Or zaru ala tzadik ישרי לב, simcha. Turn to page 134. Zamru ladonai. Zameru ladonai bechinor, bechinor bekol zimra. Zameru ladonai bechinor, bechinor bekol zimra. Zameru, zamru ladonai. Zameru, zamru ladonai. Zameru ladonai bechinor, bechinor bekol zimra. Zameru ladonai bechinor, bechinor bekol zimra. Zameru, zamru ladonai. Zameru, zamru ladonai. Zameru ladonai bechinor, bechinor bekol zimra. Zameru ladonai bechinor, bechinor bekol zimra. Turn to page 138 for Lecha Dodi. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Bnei Shabbat nekabela. Oh, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Bnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor וזכור בדיבורך, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשמו תפארת ולתהילה. הולך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. הולך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. Verse 2. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. הולך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. הולך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. Verse 3. מקדש מלך עיר מלוכה, קומי צאי מתוך אפיך. רב לך שבט בעמק הבכה, והוא יחמול עלייך חמלה. הולך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. הולך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. Verse 5. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי. אורי, אורי, שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. הולך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. הולך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה. We'll rise and face the entrance. Verse 9. בואי ושלום, עטרת מעלה, גם בשמחה ובתולה.
We'll remain standing. We'll turn to page 263 for Chatzi Kaddish, and as we do, we'll invite Soleil to come up on the bimah to prepare to lead the rest of our service. Come on up, Soleil. Page 263.
יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה, ועלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכו בית ישראל. בגלה, בגלה, ובזמן קריב וימרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעלם ולעלמי המעיין. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשא בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה ושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא ואימרון אמן.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם
ועד.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Please be seated. Page 265, a prayer for evening Ma'ariv Aravim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim bechokma poteach she'arim ubitbuna meshane itim umachalif et hazmanim umasader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono Borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or umavir yom umevi layla umavdil ben yom uvein layla Adonai tzavaot shemo Echai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai hamari haravim Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha avta Torah u'mitzvot Chukim u'shpatim Otzanu limadeta Al kein Adonai Eloheinu B'shochbeinu v'kumeinu Nasiach bechukecha ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגד יומם ולילה. באהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל
Shema Yisrael
Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לתותבות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען
תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
Page 270, the original freedom song, Mi Chamocha.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה ליאנו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, לעולם ועד, ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גל ישראל. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום, לשלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך. אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבורא סוכת שלום, עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל, ועל ירושלים.
Page 272, the words from Torah that command us to not only keep the Shabbos, but guard and protect it, to set bounds around it so that we don't infringe upon it. I was actually listening to a podcast today with Ben Sass, who's former president of the University in Florida, and before that, a United States Senator from Nebraska. Republican and not somebody whose politics were generally aligned with mine, but his family values, as I've learned about him, very much are. And sadly, Mr. Sass is dying of cancer, and he's in very late stages. He's a young man. He's my age. I guess he's not as young as I would like it to be, but in his 50s. And the interview asked him, what advice would he give to somebody like himself, or maybe even a bit younger, with young children, as Mr. Sass does, who was facing such a thing. And his advice was to honor the Sabbath day and keep it holy, that you don't get more time. And so to create and to protect those sacred moments around your family table, to not travel as much and to be home more, to set bounds around those things that are sacred so that they're not infringed upon by the busyness of life. It's not a new idea, though it may be new to those that listen to Mr. Sass or to in our modern world. It is as ancient as our Torah, and it is as relevant as this very moment, particularly so as we know how often the world intrudes on what we try to create as sacred time and space. So this is a commandment for all time, and one that we are reminded of every week as we light the Shabbos candles, that we have to make Shabbat. It doesn't just happen. You have to actually work at not working. You have to work at being present. Page 272, Vishamru.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. Yum ba da da da, Shabbat Shabbat, yum ba da da da, Shabbat Shabbat, yum ba da da da, Shabbat, 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 Shalom. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. Yam barai rai rai, Shabbat, Shabbat, Yam barai rai rai, Shabbat, Shabbat, Yam barai rai rai, Shabbat, 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 Shalom.
Adonai, Sephatai Tivtach, Ufi Agidi Hilatecha, Eternal God, help us find the words as we rise to speak with you in prayer, page 274, the Amidah. You step back.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, ve'Koneh Hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך חוזר ומשיח ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע. מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה המתים.
אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Please be seated. We continue page 279 with Ritzeh.
And as we do, just to note that in the middle of it, we're actually going to chant Ya'aleh Ve'yavo, because tonight we begin Rosh Chodesh Iyar.
Yeah.
The new month, the new Hebrew month of Iyar. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu be'amecha Yisrael u'tefilatam be'ahava tekabel u'tehi leratzon תמיד עבודת ישראל, ישראל עמך, אל קרוב לכל קורב, הנה אל עבדיך וחוננו, שפוך רוחך. Eloheinu ve'Eloi avotenu ve'imotenu, Ya'aleh ve'yavo v'yizacher zichronenu, ve'zichron kol amcha beit Yisrael lefanecha, letova, lechen u'lechesed u'lerachamim, lechayim u'leshalom, ביום ראש החודש הזה, זוכרנו אדוני אלוהינו בו לטובה.
Amen.
אמן. ופוקדנו בו לברכה.
Amen.
אמן. והושיענו בו
Amen. Our God and God of our fathers and mothers, be truly mindful of us and all of your people Israel on this, the first day of the new month of ER, and renew in us love and compassion, goodness, life, and peace. This day remember us for well-being.
Amen.
This day bless us with your nearness.
Amen.
This day help us to a fuller life.
Amen.
Continue. Are we going to continue there or there? We'll go here. Okay. Modim anachnu lach shetahu Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu le'olam va'ed. Surachenu megein Yeshuenu atahu lador vador. The top of page 280 in the English. For the good in us which calls us to a better life, we give thanks.
For the strength to improve the world with our hearts and our hands, we offer praise.
For the desire in us which leads us to work for peace, we are grateful.
For
life and nature, harmony and beauty, for the hope of tomorrow, all praise to the source of being.
Ve'al kulam, ve'al kulam, yitbarach ve'itromam, yitbarach ve'itromam, shimcha malkeinu, tamid le'olam va'ed, ve'chol ha'chaim yodu chasela, v'halelu et shimcha be'emet, ha'el yeshuateinu ve'ezratenu, ezratenu selah. Ve'al kulam, yitbarach ve'itromam, yitbarach ve'itromam, shimcha malkeinu, tamid le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, ulecha na'eh lehodot.
Somewhere in the Siddur gates of prayer. Do you remember the gates of prayer? It was the prayer book that I grew up with. We used to call it the weights of prayer because it was very heavy. It had like 7 different services in it. Some that never mentioned God, some that were very traditional, some that were very creative. But somewhere in there, around the time of this next prayer, around Shalom Rav, was a reading that said something along the lines of, peace is not merely the absence of conflict, but the intentional creation of a peaceful world. Something like that. I hadn't seen that prayer probably since I was 13 or 14 years old, but that concept has remained with me since then, which, as I mentioned earlier, is now quite a long time ago. And as we think about what's going on in our world today and the opening up of the Strait of Hormuz, that's not peace. It's the absence of conflict for the time being. But peace will take more. Peace is still to come, and certainly a prayer for peace is still very much needed. But more than prayer, the work to create true and lasting peace is needed even more. And so with that as our intention, we ask that God grant us and help guide us towards Shalom Rav, towards great and audacious peace. Page 282.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim le'olam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim le'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim le'olam. V'tov beinecha levarech et amcha Yisrael bechol leit uvechol shah bishlomecha. tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam.
We'll pause for Tefillat Shebalev, the private prayers and meditations of our heart.
Ose shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, yaseh shalom aleinu, ose shalom bimromav. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol ve'al kol ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Amen. Be'imeru, amen. Be'imeru, amen. We ask for peace on earth, and we say amen. One more time. Be'imru. Be'imeru, amen. Be'imeru, as one, and we say amen.
We turn to page 371 in our prayer books as we turn our thoughts to our friends and family who are sick and in need of prayers of healing at this time. Oh, when did that happen to Hannah? Just today? Oh. Didn't see that. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Sometimes I discover stuff when I look at the list. Actually, I had somebody ask me today my thoughts on non-Jews praying for Jews for healing in their services, and Jews praying for non-Jews for healing in their services. And I'm not sure what answer they thought they were going to get from me as a rabbi, but my answer was the more prayers, the better, and that you never know which channel God's listening to at any particular time, so cover all the bases. But I think that the critical thing about the prayer that we're about to say is not that it's some magical words, at least not in my understanding of the theology behind it, but rather that the magic, if there is such a thing, or the power, more I think descriptively, of what is present when a congregation, Jewish or non, whatever, says a prayer for healing, is that a whole community joins together in their desire for that most universal of things, that people be restored to health, that families have courage and resilience and wisdom and patience, that doctors and nurses have the same as they go about the very, very challenging thing of caring for and lifting up another person, and that we do that best when we know we're not alone in the process. So the real magic, the real power of this prayer is that people feel supported in a moment when they might feel most alone and most powerless. And if that's God's power, if that's God's presence, as I think we are evidence of God in the world, that God shows up through all of us, then it is a tremendously powerful and important prayer for us to say together. So on this Shabbat, we ask God's blessing of healing on Hannah Bild, who again fell and broke her wrist. That's not the first time. Morris Richter, Peter Cooperberg, Joanna Tremblay, Billy Lackman, Ashley Speed, Ken Newman, Isaac Levitsky, Avaya Ruth Bat Mendel Vashoshana, Nomi Kaplan, Wyla Douglas, Ellen Barbary, Ruth McPhee, Annie Bross Rothenberg, Michal Michaeli, Jan Schloss, Cadence Quibel, Pearl Feldman, Shoshana Botdina, Libby Gozer, Dan Pekarsky, Ron Stewart, Benny Avidan, Sandy Merwitzer, Raphael Ben Sara, Chana Bat Meir Avraham Vashero, David Shlomo Gorney, Carla Zivit, Janet Gelb. If there's any others in need of this prayer for healing, please stand and call their names out one by one. Chaya? We'll join with our cantor, Misha Berach, page 371.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishe berach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Cantor Cohen. Shabbat Shalom. Mazel Tov Soleil on your bat mitzvah. Thank you to your family for helping bring you to this moment, and for supporting us in sponsoring our own egg. this evening. I tasted some of the stuff. It's all delicious. It's going to be good. So thank you for that, and Mazel Tov on this very special day, or weekend, I should say. This Thursday, we have a couple of things happening at the synagogue. First, our Sholom Shishim, which normally has lunches on Tuesday, but is having it on a Thursday at noon, has a concert called Music Before the Internet, a piano concert with Bob York. And that's here at the synagogue, right? And there's lunch included with that? So it's a lunch and concert, music and a show, or dinner, lunch and a show. That evening at 7 o'clock, we're very honored and excited to host a conversation between me, I'm not the exciting part, and Yossi Klein Halevi, the New York Times best-selling author and journalist. You've probably heard him on various podcasts and his articles in Times of Israel, the New York Times, and other places. Yossi and I are going to be in dialogue about what's going on in Israel, what's going on in the Jewish world, in Israel, outside of Israel, Jewish identity at large. And that starts at 7 o'clock. It's free to come. We have over 250 people signed up, so maybe come early. We also, because we have 250 people signed up, have decided that we'll stream the conversation also. So we hope that you'll come in person. We really want Yossi to have a full house. He deserves it, and it sounds like he will. But if you can't make it, or if you have friends that are interested, we will stream it, and we'll also have it available on our website afterwards. And there'll be a brief reception afterwards as well. Just to let you know, Yossi's presence here is made possible by a new endowment fund that was set up in memory of Jack Lutsky, a blessed memory, a beloved member of our congregation, the architect of our extension, the addition to our synagogue. Susan Mendelson, Jack's wife, and his brother Peter established this endowment fund. The Lutsky Mendelsons had been funding Yossi's presence here for the last couple of years quietly, and after his passing, they wanted to make sure that we could do it in perpetuity. And as part of that, Yossi's actually going to be speaking to the graduating class at King David High School before they graduate, and all the faculty at King David High School as well. So we're really pleased that we can provide that as a service to the community. There's a lot more going on at the shul. Next Friday night, just so that you know, there's a family Shabbat service, a young family Shabbat service at 5:30 is the dinner, and then the service follows that around 6 o'clock. And then there's still an 8 o'clock service next Friday night, so you can come for either, or like me, you can come for both. And we also have a self-defense course at the end of the month on Thursday, April 30th, Krav Maga, which is Israeli self-defense. Krav Maga, self-defense for busy people. Spots are limited. It's almost full. We're doing it as a staff. We just had, sadly, a security training and active shooter drill earlier this week, so we are taking all this very seriously. We want you to have the opportunity to do so as well. The last thing I'll mention is that beginning in May, on May 5th, for 3 Thursdays, is a series that we do every year, and it often sells out, called A Taste of Judaism, for those that are Jew curious. So if you have somebody in your family, or you yourself, whether you dropped out of Hebrew school or don't remember anything, or have somebody maybe you're in relationship with that is sort of Jewish adjacent, this is 3 nights, one on God, one on Jewish text, and one on Jewish peoplehood that I'll be teaching. And it's an opportunity to just get, sort of a taste of Judaism and see if you want to, have a full meal, so to speak. There's other things going on. I guess I should mention one more thing, because the deadline is coming up. At the end of May, May 29th to 31st, I'm personally very excited to be hosting Blues for Challah, which is a Jewish Grateful Dead retreat with Temple to Hirsch Sinai at URJ Camp Kalsman, which is just over the border in Arlington, Washington. The deadline to sign up is April 24th. We don't quite have our minimum yet, so in order for this to go, we need like another 7 or 10 people to sign up. So if you have Jewish deadheads, or they don't have to be Jewish, if you have a deadhead in your circle, please let them know. It's going to be a great time. We even have a Jewish Grateful Dead scholar of philosophy and the Grateful Dead and Judaism coming to teach. He's got a PhD from Johns Hopkins University in philosophy and has written books on Judaism and the Grateful Dead. So it'll be fun. Anything else, Cantor? Okay. There have been a number of open houses in our neighborhood these last few weeks. And while we have no intention or means to buy a new home, I like to look and see what is out there. That whole idea of coveting your neighbor's house, I don't think applies to looking. So a few weekends ago, while driving home from shul, actually, I went home to home and open house to open house for about an hour looking into people's homes. It was an exceedingly odd and extremely uncomfortable experience, and also fascinating at the same time. As anyone who has ever been house hunting knows, you walk into some stranger's home. You don't even knock on the front door. You just let yourself in. And you start looking at all their stuff. I mean, you're there to look at the floor plan and the lighting and the windows and the whole thing, the walls and all that. But instead, you spend most of your time looking at their stuff. And you comment on their taste or their lack there, or at least I do. I'm sure you don't. But why is it that people selling their houses always seem to decorate their home so differently than you would? Just dramatically so. How many times have you walked through an open house and said to yourself, or maybe to anyone with an earshot, oy vey, what would make them paint that color or choose those floors or that carpet? What were they thinking? As I was walking through the houses, another thought entered my mind as well. It was an old game that my parents used to play with us when we would go to visit and view historic homes in my hometown of San Francisco. We called it If These Walls Could Talk. And as you walk through a home, my mother's an educator, so that's where you get these kinds of things. As you walk through a home that you don't know, perhaps a really old home, do you ever wonder who used to live here? And do you ever wonder about that family? I do. I see a bedroom that was added on, and I wonder, was it done to accommodate a new child that had been born, or an elderly parent that had moved in? I walk through a kitchen and I smell the smells and wonder what the family dinners were like here. Did they have a Seder? Thanksgiving? Where did people sit? In one of the homes I visited, there was a mezuzah left on the door. By the way, it's Jewish custom that if you're selling your home and it's a Jewish family that's buying the home, you leave the mezuzah up. You don't take it down. And I would wonder if the family belonged to a synagogue. Where did they light their Shabbos candles? Where did they place their Hanukkah? And how would they feel if they knew another Jew was in their house? You stand there in another person's home and you look at a child's height etched on a doorframe, year by year. Family photos of relatives taken in that yard that's right outside. Or sometimes a hospital bed that is downstairs. A wedding picture, but there's an empty closet, one empty closet in the master bedroom also. A high chair and a room clearly belonging to a teenager. The house is telling you a story. If these walls could talk. And what did these walls see? And what did they hear? This week's Torah portion, Tazria Mitzora, the bane of every bar and bat mitzvah student's existence. And yes, Soleil, you won the bat mitzvah lottery. Because this is the Torah portion with leprosy and skin disease and household mold. Oh my. Every year in my rabbinate, I get calls from anxious parents when the Torah portions are allotted and to our B'nai Mitzvah students. And they call me up and they say, I am sure, and I'm sure Rabbi Bregman got these calls long before I did. And they say, Rabbi, please, I don't want my son to have to talk about skin disease on his bar mitzvah. Can't we change it? It's horrible. It's gross. Why do we have to read this on such a happy occasion? And I say, I'm a Reform rabbi, but I'm not that Reform. But if we look closely at the Parsha, and Soleil's going to do this tomorrow, we discover that not only is it about people getting skin disease, but if we read carefully, we see that houses are afflicted as well. Quoting from the Torah, the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying, when you enter the land of Canaan that I give you as a possession, and I inflict an eruptive plague upon a house in the land you possess, the owner of the house shall come and tell the priest, saying something like, a plague has appeared on my house. How, might you ask, can a house get skin disease? And to answer that question, we must answer another. This is very rabbinic, which is, how do people get skin disease in the Bible? And on this, the Torah is actually kind of unclear. But the commentators over time have deduced that one was afflicted with skin disease if they were a gossip. They look to the examples of Moses and Miriam and a host of others who each participated in gossip and then were stricken with tzara'at, with this skin disease, and conclude that their cause and effect are related. The punishment of the individuals who are afflicted seems to support this conclusion. They would be cut off from the community, the gossiper would be, where presumably they would feel anguish over what might have been said or they might have been saying, or might feel anguish about what's being said about them in their absence while they are quarantined, so that they could not continue to spread rumors and gossip. And then were not allowed back into the camp until they had made a sin offering before God, and presumably until the gossip had somewhat dissipated, though we know it never goes away entirely, and with the internet it lives forever. But how then does a house commit the sin of gossip? And to this we turn to Yehuda Leb Alter, or the Ger Rebbe, Sfat Emet he was called. A great Kabbalist and Jewish commentator who died actually in 1905, so not that long ago. Again, I'm 55 years old. And he answered this question in kind of a mystical way. The Sfat Emet, whose name means lips of truth, said that the disease on the walls of a house is a symbol for sin, as it is the walls of a house or houses that are witnesses to the sinful behavior of those who dwell within them. For the rabbi, the walls may not talk, but they for sure listen. They hear all that takes place within them and echo what occurs therein. The walls of our homes bear witness to what takes place within. We know that to be true. In the case of a house stricken with a plague or mold, they reflect the infectious, contagious, and deadly speech that all too often takes place within the walls of our homes. Hurtful words and slanderous accusations between spouses, between siblings, between family and friends. Imagine for a moment if the walls of your home could speak. What would they say? What would they testify to about what goes on inside them? Judaism, through this Torah portion, teaches that this is not simply a fantasy, it's actually a truth, or suggests, at least, that we should live as though it is true. There's no hiding ourselves in our homes. Not from each other, not from ourselves, and not from God. The walls bear witness. God sees, God hears everything, or so our faith commands us to operate as if. Belief here is not the requirement. We don't have to believe. What is required is intention and honest behavior. Maimonides, the great Jewish philosopher and physician and scholar, his parents were very proud, a philosopher, a physician, a scholar, a rabbi, explains that tzara'at on the walls of our home are a divine warning message, imploring its victims to soul search, to look deeper inside themselves than what they see when they look in the mirror, which is only skin deep when we look in the mirror. In Maimonides' progression, the affliction would start by affecting the house, and then furniture, and then clothing, and finally the bodies of the people inside. From the periphery to the center of the victim's reality. That what we think is external to us will come to be internal and personal if we don't confront it, deal with it before it consumes us. And how true that is, that external things become internal when we simply try to ignore them. The rabbis of the tradition teach that we should make our home a mikdash me'at, a sanctuary in miniature, a smaller version of the holy sanctuary, the holy temple in Jerusalem. And that like that holy place in Jerusalem, only holy, sacred, and worthy things should take place inside the walls of our home. That's a commandment. When I counsel couples about to be married, I remind them of this teaching, or maybe teach it to them the first time from our tradition, encouraging them to set aside a room in their house where they never fight. A sanctuary where only words of kindness and love are exchanged, where only holy things take place. And some will say to me, but Rabbi, how will a room stop us from fighting or arguing with each other? And my answer, of course, is that it's not the room that stops you. Rather, it reminds you that there are limits, that there are boundaries, lines of holiness that we do not cross, things that we just do not say to or about those that we love. The words come from our lips, and so we must stop them ourselves. This midrash informs us that our matriarch Sarah's Shabbat candles burned for 7 days. From Shabbat to Shabbat, her candle, her flame never went out. So there was never a moment in her tent that was not a moment of holiness. And this tradition was passed on to her daughter-in-law Rebecca, and then each generation should strive to mirror that example, to make our home a place where holiness burns brightly and is never extinguished. For a house to be a home, a mikdash me'at worthy of sacred things and memories that are created within its walls, we must be mindful of what we say and what we do within it. What if our walls could talk? What would they say about how we live within them? How we live our lives? How we treat our family? What would they say about our friends? Tonight, we are reminded that they are talking to us. Our walls are talking. They're talking through Torah. Through this gross and perplexing parsha, our walls are spreading a beautiful message. You can hear it if you listen closely. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to now turn to the counting of the Omer, Sifrat HaOmer, and Cantor Cohen's going to introduce that and explain it to you now.
You can find most of the words on page 570. This is the blessing that we're commanded to say every night, counting the days between Pesach and Shavuot, 7 weeks. And so this melody helps us do that in a more intentional way with some traditional text. So it's not just the blessing, but it's going to be a little bit extra. It starts like this. Yai la la la, yai la la la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, Leshem yichud, Leshem yichud, kudsha, kudsha brichu shchinte hineni. הנני מוכן ומזומן לקיים מצוות עשה שספירת העומר, שספירת העומר, שספירת העומר, שספירת העומר. So we just said we are ready to complete this commandment of counting the Omer. Now we add Sheva Shabbatot, 7 weeks. Sheva Shabbatot, Temimot, Temimot tiena. Sheva Shabbatot, Temimot tiena. Yai la la la, yai la la la, yai la la. Blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu, v'mitzvotav etzivanu, asfirat haomer, asfirat haomer, asfirat haomer. Sfirat HaOmer. Hayom shishasar yom, Shem shnei shavuot, Ushnei yamim la'omer. Today is the 16th day, making 2 weeks and 2 days of the Omer.
Turn to page 586 and rise for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובה מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום השבותה אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת. אין עוד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. It's a custom in our congregation that when someone comes to the end of Shloshim, 30 days after the death of their loved one, that we invite them to share words of askara, words of memory and insight, not a eulogy, but rather an extraction of lessons from the person's life, so that we can all benefit and truly make their life a blessing, their memory a blessing, I should say. And so we want to invite Mariel Solon, who is also a member of our congregation, in addition to being everything here, but our facilities coordinator and events manager and everything else. And she also does our sound, so she's adjusting the microphone on her own behalf to remember her cousin, William Earlbaum, a blessed memory.
Thank you for allowing me to speak for a few moments about two family members, actually, who recently passed away. Bill Earlbaum, or William, and Carol Crawford. They were married for 54 years. Carol passed away last September, and Bill 1 month ago. Bill was my dad's first cousin, but because my dad is an only child, his cousins were more like siblings, and Bill and Carol became central to our extended family life. Bill was a lawyer and then a Queens Supreme Court judge, and Carol was a teacher and an artist. Their home in Forest Hills, Queens became a lively place for family gatherings, good food, and even better conversation. They both lived big lives, and their recent departures have left a big hole in our hearts. The family connection was so strong that my husband Craig and I asked Bill to officiate our wedding in 2010. And while I lived in New York, I spent a lot of time with Carol, photographing her artworks for exhibition catalogs. And I'm grateful we had so much one-on-one time together. My sister Danielle is a better writer than me, so I'm going to share her memories that she wrote about this special couple. Thank you. Bill and Carol meant so much to me. Their home in Forest Hills holds so many memories. I loved the window seat overlooking Carol's wild and creative garden in the backyard. I loved their brunches with a good Jewish spread, lots of schmear. I loved when we'd be on the couch and Bill would finally sit down to relax and put on some Billie Holiday during family gatherings. Bill was a lawyer and then became a judge. Humans were intensely interesting to him, and I was always struck by how his worldview combined realism, empathy, justice, and ethics. I always admired his sense of principle and his professional and personal stand against the death penalty. When he was close to retirement, I attended an event where he was honored. I remember feeling so proud. To have a family connection with someone who had lived and worked with such integrity and had made such an impact, even though he liked to joke that if he hadn't been on one side of the law, he would have been on the other. Bill was always so proud of living in Queens because, as he would say, it was the most diverse place in the world. He took pride in teaching at Brooklyn College and the impact he had on his students. When I think of Bill, I think of him with such a vivid physical presence, and it's hard to believe he's not with us anymore. I hear his distinctive, gravelly voice with his honking New York accent in my mind. Even as a kid, I was a rapt listener to his long stories and multi-paragraph discourse, peppered with his penchant for borderline inappropriate jokes. One image that always stays with me is Bill calling Carol his bride, bringing her coffee and being so solicitous toward her. He supported her art making, encouraged her to write, and admired her intellect. This respect for his partner always moved me, and that devotion between them is something I will always remember. There are some couples who are truly singular, and Bill and Carol were one of them. I will miss them forever. I love them so much. May their memory be a blessing today and forever. Thank you.
I'll turn off the microphone. So as we turn in our prayer books to page 598, where we'll find the words of Kaddish, we recall those who died during this past week, whose families, like Marielle, are in the midst of Shiva and Shloshim. As I read the name of your loved one, if you could please rise and remain standing. Dr. Philip Edelman, William Earlbaum, Sharon Leslie Fugman, Jody Wearer, and those for whom the Yortzeit, the anniversary of the death of your loved one, falls on this Shabbat, if you two could rise as I read their name. Chaim Eichenwald, Ruby Burns, Solomon Bild, Henrietta Bryman, Joanne Susan Cox, Judith Kahn Donald, Rosa Dudelzak, Hetty Edelstein, Jonathan Feltingoff, Goldie Bueller-Filer, Harry Gelfand, Rachmael Glicksberg, Renee Goldberg, Cecil Groberman, Alter Groner, Gary Gutman, Claire Howitt, Eric Jackson, Samuel Kahaya, Eudice Kaplan, Ben Karp, Isabel Ann Ingram Klaber, Gladys Corman, Louis B. Crivel, Bertha Crivel, Joy Labo, John Levine, Rachel Levine, Roger Lewis, Robert Selwyn Lockich, Layla Ruth Mednick, Sarah Monlack, Renee Mutal, Daniel Nabarro, Jack Ornstein, Francis Panner, Brant Parker, Marilyn Perrin, Evelyn Platel, Pal Reves, George Edward Robbins, Dr. David Norman Schuster, Wolf Smoos, Irma Tausig, Emil Tausig, Jenno Tenenbaum, Sari Tenenbaum, Margit Tenenbaum, Judica Tenenbaum, Jacob Tervaskaya, Mailer Valance, Linda Vickers, Dulcie Voisin, Louis Winkler. There are names that I have missed or mispronounced. I think there are a few I mispronounced. Or if you've come to say Kaddish for any other reason, if you could please stand and call their names out or correct the ones that I've said. We'll look around, seeing those that have stood in mourning. We don't want them to stand alone, and so we rise now, providing the comfort of our presence to those who are in mourning and inviting you to join with them if you choose in Kadisha Tom, the Mourner's Kaddish, page 598. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, b'yoma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayachon of yomechon uv'hayed chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'bizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Leolam Ulamei Omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh. V'yit adar v'yit aleh v'yit alal Shemei Kudisha B'richu. Le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Damiron be'alma v'yimaru amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba min Shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimaru amen. Osei shalom yiramav, hu ya'asei shalom, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael, v'kol yoshvei tevel, v'yimaru, amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort the bereaved among us, and we say together, amen. So we want to ask Soleil's grandfather Raymond and her dad Eric to come up and to lead us in Kiddush and Motzi. And I want to again thank Carmel and Indar for sponsoring our own egg following our service. So if you'll come over here. The cantor will assist. The blessings are here on the card if you want.
Take it. Vayer, vayiboker, yom hashishi. Vayicholu hashamayim, v'haaretz v'kol tzva'am. V'yichal Elohim v'yom hashvi'i, malachto asher asa. V'yishpot v'yom hashvi'i, v'chal malachto asher asa. V'yivarech Elohim et yom hashvi'i, v'yikadesh ata. Kibo Shabbat Makal Melachto Asher Bara Elohim Lasot. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Boirei Pri Hagofen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzosav v'ratzah banu v'shabbat kodsha be'ahava v'ratzon chincha lanu zikron l'maaseh Breshit ki hu yom tehila l'mikra kodesh Zecher l'tzias Mitzrayim, kibanu v'charta, v'yatanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodscha, v'ahava u'v'ratzon, chin chaltanu, baruch atah Adonai, mikadesh ha'shabbat.
Amen. Chaim.
Chaim. You want a drink? I drink.
It's grape juice, don't worry. The good stuff's in my office.
Okay.
So you can uncover the challah.
Yeah.
And hold it up and say the blessing. Baruch.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
Amen. We'll conclude with Adon Olam. It's at the end of the book somewhere, 625.
625.
Yes, it is on 625. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Leit Nasa V'chefzo Kol Azayin Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Hover Ve'hu Yeh B'tifara Ve'hu Echad Ve'en Sheni Lehamshilo Leachbira Ve'li Reishit Ve'li Tachlit Ve'lo Ha'oz Ve'hamisra Ve'hu Eli Ve'chai Goali Ve'tzur Chevli Ve'tzara Ve'hu Nisi Umanos Li Menat kosi beyom nekra beyado afgid ruchi beiti sham ve'ayira ve'im ruchi geviati Adonai li ve'lo ira.
Torah study tomorrow morning at 8:30. I think it's online and in person. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.